Good evening, everyone. I'm Rebecca Turner, the Clerk Recorder and Registrar of Voters. I'm going to be going through the redistricting presentation this evening, and we also have, I'd like to introduce everyone in the room from the county. So Kristen Von Lada is in the back. She's our County Administrative Officer. And then we are very fortunate to have PATV come help us out with recording this meeting. So we have Sarah and Susan. Of course, you know these guys. Our District 1 Supervisor, Gary Toffanelli, and our District 2 Supervisor, Jack Garamendi. And then Robin Glanville is the Assistant Registrar, and I can't do anything without her, so she's here. So I'm going
This is Rebecca Turner.
She's our Clerk Recorder.
The clerk
I introduced myself.
And
Elections Department.
and does a great job. So
Yeah.
we'd like you to have her.
That's true.
And she's from this side of the county.
It's
Original,
true.
Not now.
Like fairly well deep-rooted, I guess. Lots of family from this side of the county.
City now.
Yes, I have migrated throughout the county. So I'm going to go through this presentation. I'm going to try and slow it down. I have a tendency to speed through because I've gone through it so many times. But if I'm going too quick or you have questions, feel free to ask them. We will have a questions and comment period at the end. Other than that, I'll go ahead and get started. And if you at any point need water or candy, it's on the side over here. And if I'm too boring and you need a little extra sugar, feel free to dose up. So the Calaveras County Supervisorial Districts as they exist currently are up on the screen right now. You'll see that District 2 is the red, and District 1 is the blue area, and then we have the green and District 3, 4 in purple, and the dark blue is District 5. We're going to be focusing primarily on comments related to District 1 and 2 tonight, but the overview of the process is the same for everyone. So every 10 years, districts must be redrawn so each district is substantially equal in population. This process is called redistricting, and it's important to ensure that each board member represents about the same number of constituents. So in Calaveras County, the Board of Supervisors is responsible for drawing supervisorial districts. So how this is going to happen this year is I'm going to be collecting the data from you guys as far as what your comments are on how you think the district should be drawn, and I'm going to try to compile that all and submit to the supervisors first drafts or drafts that they can look at and make changes to. So after these meetings, we will have draft maps submitted that you can review, and then we'll have additional public hearings where we can discuss those draft maps. So map criteria, then yes, we do. Thank you, Robin. The map criteria, the number one priority is the population. So that is what the census is based off, and when we receive that data from the Census Bureau, they tell us in what we call population blocks and how much population is in each one of these blocks. So we'll go over population blocks more in a bit, but that's the number one priority when we're redistricting, is to make sure all 5 supervisorial districts are substantially equal in population. We also have to follow the Voting Rights Act, which means that we can't discriminate against anyone when drawing those lines or favor anyone in that same equal protection, and there's restrictions on gerrymandering. So if one supervisor just wanted to take a whole section of an area or move it for the intent of a certain candidate for themselves or for a political party, we couldn't do that. So when we're drawing the lines, we can't take into consideration any candidates that are currently running for office or any candidates that may run in the future for office. We have to draw them, keeping communities intact as much as possible, and also equaling out the population. So those are our top 3 criterias that the federal government tells us we need to follow. Additional map criterias that passed in AB 1276 in the last year require us to look at these ranked priorities, which include supervisorial districts shall be geographically contiguous, meaning you can't have islands and then put them back together and call them a supervisorial district. They have to be compact and in one area, one shape to be a supervisorial district. We need to take into consideration communities of interest. So we're going to talk about communities of interest quite a bit tonight, because that is one of the new things, and that's how you guys get involved in this process, is telling us what your community of interest is, and then we compile that data and we try to draw maps so that we don't split a community of interest. We need to take into consideration cities and census designated places. So Mokelumne Hill is not a city, however, as a township, it is a census designated location, as are the other towns in our county. So we should respect those and as much as possible keep those all intact as well. Meaning we wouldn't split them between two supervisorial districts. The districts need to be easily identifiable and understandable to the residents. So if we wouldn't cut you by our artificial barrier or shouldn't, or a natural barrier. So a natural barrier would be a ridge line. So District 2 and District 3 is split by a ridge line. That makes sense. It wouldn't make sense if all of a sudden you pulled in Arnold and said it's now part of District 2. You don't necessarily have relation. There's no way for Arnold to easily get over to District 2 without going across the mountain. So other barriers would include streets, which are man-made barriers, also artificial barriers. Where it does not conflict with any other criteria, we need to make sure that the districts are geographically compact. So avoiding squiggly lines across the county is what we're looking at here, trying to keep districts as compact as possible. No peninsulas, no fingers pointing out, trying to, for the most part, keep them one solid shape. And then the Board of Supervisors shall not adopt districts favoring or discriminating against any political party. So communities of interest. This is a population that shares common social or economic interests that should be included within a single supervisorial district for the purpose of its effective and fair representation. Communities of interest do not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. This is what we want to know from the community and why we're here. We're trying to proactively collect information from you. So a community of interest in this process is an area that you don't want split between supervisorial districts. You think your voting power is better represented if you're in one supervisorial district because you have stronger voting power. So what is a community of interest? It could be you're an urban area. It could be that you're a rural area. Housing patterns, cultural, religious, language characteristics, communication, redevelopment areas, school districts, income levels, educational backgrounds, social interests, community centers, dog parks, regular parks, all could be considered a community of interest. So what I'm trying to tell you really is it's so broad, you could probably come and tell me my community is interested in this, and we'll say, okay, that's a community of interest. You could say, we live in a historic area and my area specifically all has brick houses. Our community of brick houses is interested in the historical, and that is why. And then you'd also say we don't want to be in a certain district, or we do want to be part of a certain district, or we don't care what district we're in, we just want to stay whole. Community Mapper. On our website now, there is a mapping application that allows you to submit your community of interest. You can explain on there why it should not be split between two supervisorial districts, and you can make comments on maps submitted by others. So right now I think we have 6 or 7 maps that have been submitted, and you could go on there and you could submit your own map, or you could even make comments on other people's that they've already submitted, whether you like it or dislike it, agree or disagree with what they consider the community to be. We also have our redistricting website up, which gives you an overview of the process, the current timeline, the community mapper tool, and a how-to video. population data, and then the public hearings will all be posted on that website as well. We also have Community Mapper here tonight. So if you wanted somebody to walk you through to draw a map, you could do that and we could help you with that. Or you can watch the how-to video if you had any questions. You also have a public comment card, which if you didn't want to draw a map and you think you could just tell us in words what your community of interest is, you could explain it on there and then tell us what district you're most interested in being a part of, and we'll take that and compile it as well. And on that same comment card, if you don't necessarily know or want to submit a community of interest, you just want to know more about the redistricting process and you want us to send you updates, you could fill it out with your email address and we'll keep you updated anytime we post information. So the timeline. The census data was released by the federal government on August 12th. Well, the caveat to that was, yes, they just released statewide data. So it's all out there. But at this point, it's not Calaveras specific. So we still are waiting for the Calaveras specific data so that we can release it to the public and really drill down on what population changed where. So right now, what we've put out there is an estimate of, a very well accurate estimate, I'll have to say, of how the district population has changed to date. But it's not all-encompassing. So we are still waiting on additional data to start the draft mapping process. So right now we're working on supervisor town halls. So we're here and asking you guys for information about how you think the district boundaries should be drawn, or where you think your community should be placed within those boundaries. We're hoping that by September 16th, I believe was the latest update that they sent out, that we'll have data by September 16th. So with that data, I'm hoping by early October to release the first draft maps, and then to also release when the additional public hearings will happen at that time. So at this point, everything else is to be determined until we get to our hard set date of the June 7th primary election. That date won't be moving, so at some point we have to get the redistricting data so we can start working with it. And then as of now, the signature in lieu filing period opens December 16th, so the board has to adopt a map in time for us to open those filing periods for candidates. We also, I'd like to bring to your attention, have statewide redistricting occurring. And if you submit a map with us, it doesn't necessarily go to the state, but the state has their own mapping tool because they're also drawing the Senate, Congressional Assembly, and Board of Equalization districts right now. And their mapping tool, if you want to submit a community of interest, isn't necessarily, you're not going to submit your subdivision because on a statewide level, that's not, it's more, where do you think Calaveras County should be grouped with other counties, other rural areas in the state? So if you wanted to submit a map, you could do it on a larger scale with the Draw My California Community. This is just a picture of this California's 8th Senate District. The star is Calaveras County and when we're located in that district. You can see that it's primarily rural counties, but it does cut into larger counties, but typically the rural areas of those counties. We also have California's 5th Assembly District. Again, Calaveras County is right here on the edge with the star. The 4th Congressional District, so your U.S. representative. And then the Board of Equalization. So you can see with primarily all of those districts, we're grouped with the rural counties. I think that it's semi-important to us that we stay grouped with the rural counties because that is better represents us and better gets our voices heard across the state. So that's just my 2 cents I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention. I actually have nothing to do with statewide redistricting, but I did want to bring it to your attention that that was occurring right now as well. So Calaveras County, as of April of 2020, the census gave us our population, and what we saw that was the most significant change is that District 2 lost population. So if a district loses population, the district has to grow to larger geographically in order to make up that difference. So District 2 will have to be coming down somewhere and picking up more territory, which that then impacts the surrounding districts. So even though District 1, for instance, didn't really lose, they stayed fairly stagnant in the whole scheme of things, and they didn't really lose anything. So you'll see District 2, or District 1, with 9,466 citizens, stayed within the allowable range. So if every district stayed within the allowable range, we wouldn't necessarily have to change our districts at all, because we'd already be mostly even. So that's what we'll be doing in this process, is looking at those other districts and seeing how we can adjust the population to make District 2 larger, and then adjust the others so they don't get out of whack in size either. I had this slide up somewhat out of order, but you'll see green is District 2 and the blue is District 1. However, what I really wanted to show you was that outline there in light blue is a population block. So when I say we're working with population blocks, then it tells us it's not a neat, tidy little block that we just get to like stack up and work with. They go like this. So we're trying to put all those shapes back together into what is a compact district, and it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what now? You can check out our website and watch for updates to the timeline. You could submit a community of interest map. You could provide your email address on your public comment card, and we'll send you updates as we receive them. And you could submit a public comment. If you don't have questions or comments tonight, we do have an email, a redistricting email address that would be great if you had questions or comments you sent your information to, so we could compile everything in one spot and make sure we're answering everybody. But you could also reach out to me directly or one of your supervisors, and they will pass the information along. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'm sorry I told you ahead of time that I was pretty boring. No surprise there. So if you have comments or questions, we can go through those now. And if you want to submit a public comment, Robin is over here and can do that. Did you guys want to add anything?
Thank you very much, Rebecca. We're really lucky to have such a great team working in our clerk recorder's office in elections. They run a really great, clean shop. We should be really proud of the work that goes on there. The numbers are the numbers, and unfortunately, it's frustrating to all of us. We don't have the detailed data. So trying to figure out what exactly happened and why and where is a challenge. But clearly, District 2 lost a lot of population. I can speculate on why. I don't know exactly root causes at the moment. That data will be teased out. Certainly, items like the Butte Fire, people selling their homes, and second homeowners taking on these properties, I think they've all contributed to it. So we're going to have to figure out where we're going to grow our district from, but I'm glad you're all here because very interested to hear what everybody's opinion is. There's people in the room who've done this a couple times. I see Mike back there. He's done this. Gary's done this. So this is my first rodeo in this. I look forward to it.
You bring up a good point too, though. So as of 2020, you lost population, but if we did the census in April of 2021, would you have? We don't know. But the problem is we can't use April of 2021. The federal government requires us to use the census as of census date, April 2020. So we might see a very different picture population-wise if it was taken at a different time in history, especially with COVID and how I think we would see significant changes, to be honest, because a lot of people moved to our county at that point, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out, since it's a little bit different than Mike, when Mike was supervisor back then, you didn't have what they have now, and they started last time, which are these census blocks. You could say Hazel Cane's fence line all the way down to Paloma Road and over. You could just divide it up equally however you wanted, but now these census blocks that are here play a vital part in how this is going to happen, because you can't split a census block. You can't cut it in half. You have to use the whole block. And so sometimes if you're only short 20 over here, the closest blocks that you have to tie to, because they all have to touch, the next one may have 300 in it. So it's kind of a difficult situation. It makes it difficult, or more difficult, trying to do it, what we're up against, along with some of the additions that they've added since last time with AB 1278, and not splitting a lot of things and using ridge lines. It's changed a little bit different from the last time, 10 years ago. But what I wanted to also make a note on, and Rebecca and your crew, you guys did a great job. But the other thing we're up against time-wise also, not only for candidates that want to run in whatever district we end up with the map in, it depends on the voters too, on which district they're going to vote in. So those lines have to be there in order to be going forward to the election, so you know what district you're going to be in. It's very important. So other than that, when we get the additional information, it should be a little bit more clear to you, and we should have, like she said, hopefully by the 19th of September, 16th of September, and we can post those maps on there, and you can see the gray lines, and each one of those little blocks will have a population in it. And then you can more or less define your map if you're going to go on there and make a map, so you can get to the proper census within your district.
Thanks, Gary. Mike. Offhand, I don't know, but it didn't change significantly. The major changes were we submitted the county for the population blocks to align with the school district lines. So there was some areas that I would call messy between District 2 and District 3 because the school district lines didn't match up with the ridge line. So you had a few little bits of population that really, because we can't split the census block lines, I keep doing this like it means something to you guys, but and so it pulled people on the opposite side of the line because we couldn't split the census blocks, and we were stuck to that. So we did ask them to adjust those census blocks to match up with the school district and the ridge line, so that we could clean those areas up and people weren't hanging out that on the other side of the mountain stuck, separated from their district. So not a lot changed. I did try to change more. They told me no, so. I wanted to line them up with every town and make it neat and pretty, and they said that historical data would be impacted by doing such a thing, and they just said no. Try talking to the Census Bureau. It's very difficult if you get through to somebody. Yes?
I can understand the frustration that we all have, with your data criteria and blocks that you need to use, and census you need to use, and then trying to project that forward, because it's obviously, apparently, always in flux. So I guess my question is, looking back at the last 10 years and how the redistrict happened then, how did that reflect over the last 10 years? Success? And can we, if it was, and everybody has remained happy for the last 10 years, can we expect that looking forward with this process that's going on?
I can answer that a little bit. It was and it wasn't. And again, I go back to AB 1278 that's passed since then, which says you can't split communities. Several communities were split last time. And in my district specifically, which I got a number of complaints is we went down Vista del Lago Drive, and because of the census blocks, part of La Contenta got cut out and went into District 5, and District 1 was on the other side of the road. So basically, one side of Vista del Lago is District 1, the other side is 5, but it's the same community. So that's happened a couple of times during that time in other areas because there was no criteria saying you can't split a community of interest up. So that's going to be some of the things and challenges that we're going to have to deal with going forward in this one, is that's not going to be allowed. Specifically, we'll have to try and Rancho, Calaveras, and La Quintana are really close once you get out past Hart-Dixon, going down Hart-Dixon and forward. Hopefully it's not a neighbor. So yes, you're right. The criteria is changed, and there was some problems that we did have. Not a whole lot, but they were there, and people did complain about it because they felt that they were left out of their communities. So that has changed with AB 1278.
So like Gary said, we should be looking at the communities of interest. The one thing we still have to do though is that first priority was population. So we still have to stick to those population blocks. So communities of interest are a ranked priority, but they are still under population. So if a population block split a community, we're semi-stuck there. And the problem is some of the population blocks will go from one community to another community over here and actually split two different communities. So trying to figure out either how to group those together or, so to be honest, the more public comments we get, because we're gonna be compiling this and trying to take everyone's community into account, but you telling us that is like, well, there's more people worried about this here. They say this is their community of interest. So at this point, the people who are the loudest and the noisiest and submit the most are really going to be the ones who win in this scenario, because that's the feedback we need, and that's what we have to fall back on. I'm not telling you guys to shout at me, but if you do, I'll give you candy.
It's going to be a very difficult task.
It's December 16th as of today, but there is a Senate bill hanging out there that might push that date back. But the timeline we're working right now is December 16th, which technically then the Board of Supervisors need to pass their resolution adopting the map by November 16th, because it takes 30 days for it to go into effect. So even those dates might change.
And I'm new to the county. What's one of the biggest issues in facing what are the issues like systems get impacted or public services?
That's a really good question. It doesn't impact the others. It's simply a grouping of people who vote for a supervisor, one of these guys. So it could change though if you have different interest than the other people in your district. It could change the outcome of who your supervisor is. It could change, and that's where not gerrymandering or doing anything to favor one in particular is the main goal, because counties, the state, anyone could draw lines to make sure the candidate they wanted in office, and then it favors one side. So the main purpose is to try to keep your representation fair and equal for everyone. So not drawing districts that unfairly favor someone over someone else, trying to keep it equal. That's the purpose. Did that answer your question? Okay.
I know there's some people out here with some strong opinions. I'm gonna get them to raise their hand. District 2 and District 1, I think Gary was correct. There were some maneuvers that had to happen in the last one, but in general, I think that the districts, they did a pretty good job. My district, District 2, includes Mokelumne, goes from Paloma to West Point, Sheep Ranch, and down to the outskirts of Calaveras, and then over towards San Andreas. It's a good district. There's a lot of commonalities. And I know that's something that's important as well. School district as well. We could all know where our kids go to high school and share that together. So these are real important. So there are impacts. I don't think Mokel wants to be looped in with Murphy's. Those are two very different communities. But I think we get along pretty well when we talk about Mount Ranch, West Point, Paloma, over towards the edges of San Andreas. So there's a lot of commonalities. So I think there's good cohesion in our districts right now. Unfortunately, this does come up every 10 years, and we do have to shift. But I would certainly hope that we don't have, I don't think there's any appetite to turn the apple cart all the way over. I could be wrong here.
That was, thank
I'm
you, because
speculating.
you asked if we drew sound districts last time, and I would say even with the data, the shift, yeah, we did, because even the population didn't really shift that much. It looks like it, but I was thinking, I'm going to draw a pie chart to show the differences. Guess what? The 5 slices of the pie looked almost the same. So nothing changed that significantly overall, but we do have to even it out because we're beyond the 5% deviation allowable. So the least we could do to upset the apple cart essentially is the goal, unless we hear from the community and they say otherwise.
Just a question, wondering, since you spoke of how you were splitting some communities down the street, is that something that you'll be looking at altering again with those districting this time?
I think we try and avoid it if we can, but like Rebecca pointed out, the census blocks dictate where and what you can do. Certainly, I don't want to split Washington up again. And
No,
I would like to see a
putting it
community,
more back
but
together.
at one time, 10 years ago, there was some maps that were drawn that included Paloma in District 1. And because people didn't want that to happen, I got a lot of comments from people that lived in Paloma that said they belong in Mokel. That worked, and we were able to draw lines elsewhere, so it didn't include Paloma in District 1. Hopefully that we will go that route this time too, not only with Paloma but with other areas that are in the intensive community like she was talking about. Even though there may be a little bit of a road distance between them, they collate with the other part. So trying to keep them all together is what our goal is. Believe me, as supervisors, we don't want to divvy up our own district because we've been involved in it for so long. We know most of the people that we represent there. We don't want to see a change, but obviously, federal and state laws, something's got to happen, especially in District 2, and most of my district borders them. Like she said, the ridge line with District 3 is not going to work. So I'm right on the edge of being where I need to be. So anything that comes out of my district, I have to make up somewhere else, either District 5 or whatever district that I'm touching or bordering that the community can fit in with District 1. So that's where it starts becoming difficult. Is, yeah, we can draw lines here, we can do this, but now we've got to replace the 1,000 people we took from District 1 from somewhere because now they're down. So it's going to be that type of task. Like you said, one block, we only need 20 and there's 20 in this block, but there's 300. So now you've got 300 that you got to replace from somewhere else. So believe me, we don't want to cut up any of the communities as they stand now. That's not our goal at all. But we have to do what we have to do. And your comments, like Rebecca said, really will weigh in a lot. And they did last time. So go on the website and click on the maps or click on redistricting, and you just go on to the regular Calaveras County website, scroll all the way down to the bottom of that website, and at the bottom it'll say redistricting. Click on redistricting, and it'll take you to that website. And you can click on the maps, you can click on comments, you can do whatever you want. Eventually we'll have, like I said, the numbers within each block, so you can draw your line to where it evens up or what you think is right. And all those comments will be reviewed when the final maps come, presented preliminary maps come to us, and we'll be able to see what the general public comments are on this process. It's very important that you do that and you get your comments in, because they will count. They really will. They did last time. They will this time.
I think it's very hard to get exactly the same number of people in the district. Is there a variance and how much we are?
5% variance.
5%. So the goal number is 9,058. That's where we know our total population now is 45,292, and we got the 9,058 by dividing that number by 5. So acceptable ranges is districts could be as low as 8,608 or as high as 9,510.
In your packet, you got the packet, near the end, in the back, there's a little block that tells you all that information, what's in each district, and what they need to get to the variable, the 5% variable. It'll be difficult. Until we get the census block numbers, what action we can do. Obviously, I will say at this point, yeah, part of District 1 is going to become part of District 2. Where at, what part of it, how many, I can't say at this point. I do know that in order to get to the bottom line, District 2 needs at least 1,200 people. Ideally, it should be around 1,400 people. But the minimum amount is going to be around 1,200 to get to that bottom number. And they've got to come from somewhere, and like I was saying earlier, District 1 and District 2 pretty much border, although there is some bordering with District 5 around the lake, that when we get the census blocks, we can see what it looks like. Where District 2 borders District 4, I'm not sure if there's a ridge line there or there's a whole lot of population to be able to get there. That's a pretty rural area.
We're going to do it. I think I speak for myself, but I think echoing what Gary said, we're going to try to do this as least disruptive as possible. We're not going to do anything crazy. We'll be squeezing around the edges, put together the population. But Gary's right. It's a giant, one of those little puzzles. You move one piece, you got to move the other one to get it all balanced out. And we'll have to figure out how that goes. Hopefully we'll be able to work around the edges so it doesn't upset, again, the apple cart too much.
So
I know, I think we both certainly like our districts.
So a good example was Gary said he got a lot of complaints about Paloma being part of District 1 before. So if you were in the Paloma area, that would be a good, it's right on the line again. So that would be a good example of somewhere that should submit a community of interest map. And then you should state when you submit that which district you think it best is represented in. Should it be District 1 or should it be District 2? So those are the type of things you should be submitting. Like Calaveras, again on the line, San Andres on the line. All of those, that's where we want to hear from people about where they think they would be better represented, because those are all communities that are on that district boundary, and the district boundary has to come down somewhere. So hearing from everyone that lives in those areas is what we want to do, so we can basically upset as few people as possible. But to be honest, someone in here might get upset in the end, but that's not our goal.
I think that's the board's goal too, is upset as
Yes, please.
It's all fixed in just population, not voters.
Just population.
overall
And
population.
since I'm also the registrar of voters, I might be confusing it and switching in and out the two, so I'm sorry if I'm doing that.
Is there any relationship, voters to population at all?
Yes, in so much as I think I essentially estimated where the changes were based off of voter population data. So when I did finally see the census information coming in, it did correlate with what I thought would happen based off of voter data. Does that make sense? Because so many citizens, so many voters. We have roughly 80% of our citizens are registered voters. So to some extent, you see a correlation.
It is 80%.
No, I made that up. Do you know offhand? Is it roughly 80? It's about 80%. So I'm not looking at a number right now, but that would be my guess, a good guess.
Thank you.
But also, those population blocks in the census, that's based just on population. It wasn't, when you filled out your census form, it didn't say registered voter counts this or whatever. They're general population numbers that we're going to give about the federal government in the state.
When part of that is the voters vote for the supervisors, but the supervisors represent all of the citizens, not just the voters. So that's why the districts get based off of citizenship, not registered voters.
So, if you're a single mom, you got 3 kids who are minors, they're not voting. There'll be 1 voter in that house, 4 people. The census is going to catch those 4 people. And this is a big.
Not very many babies in Mokelumne Hill, is there? I mean, it's mostly old. We're going to be hurt.
Don't answer
Dandy,
that.
the Garmonies have done their best to get as many of those kids as they can, but yeah, not as many. It was interesting because Rebecca was talking about the voter data, and I just got reelected, and there wasn't a big shift, huge shift in the voter data. The population data did shift a lot. So that's an example of.
Better or
It was pretty close to the same for our last election. Population had fallen out, and again we don't have the data to know exactly where that happened to the detail yet. I think I have ideas.
Today with all these kids, and I don't think they all came from District 2.
I'm sorry?
With all the kids in town, I don't think a lot of them came from District 2.
In this town?
History, here.
Oh, history, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, that was today. Here was it. Sorry, I missed it.
Non-voters.
Yeah, but to keep our schools open. Wow.
First school's open. Any other questions?
Now, I can say that you're up against, a formidable task here. I appreciate the transparency. Trying to facilitate this. Appreciate the transparency.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
To be a little arm wrestling, Gary's pretty strong, so I'll do my best.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for us. We're going to start shutting some of this down, but feel free if you have questions. Robin will take the public comment cards, and you can always call or email or get in touch with us any other way too if you have further questions.
Really check on the website often, because once we get going, it's going to change a lot
There's something
quickly. And so maybe one day say one thing, and then you go to the maps and it says other things and so forth. So check as much as you can course of the next month or so, especially when we get released the numbers from the state, because it will go quick. And you're right, it's a big task we have in front of us, and we have a very short time, she said, to do it, because the number's not being released sooner to us. So we have to be done in order for the voter register rolls to be ready for the election coming, and also the districts where any candidates wish to run, what district they're going to come from. And we're very, very, very lucky that we're not in this boat right now that we're in. And it was last year, because last year the primary was in March. This year they moved it back to June. And so we would
Because of
have no
August.
window right now
Yeah.
if it was last year. So it was a blessing that they went to June.
Could you just confirm that if you want to get email information that we fill out on the card?
Yes, if you would like us to send you updates, so for instance, as soon as that census data is available, if you give us your email address, we'll let you know that it's now on the website.
And we've had some, there's been comments have been submitted, and we're very fortunate that our clerk recorder is accessible. I've seen her, she responds to a lot of these personally, and she sees issues come up. So, and this woman knows the dirt of this county very well.
I've lived in all the districts.
I'm a
No comment on that.
Yes.